everybody, welcome to this beautiful lotus flower sunrise painting. This is fully guided step by step with every part of the instruction that you need to complete this painting. This is an easy beginner painting, and all of the information will be given to you during this lesson and also in the links below. Be sure and click that more button. And if you like art lessons like this or the ones that you see in the iCard, which is our Buddha, which is live, you click that, you can see that painting as well, and it matches this beautifully. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can be told when we're uploading new videos, because who would want to miss that? Now, I'm going to tell you about the materials, but get your paint, get your brushes, check this out, and meet me at the easel right now. I'm going to show you very quickly how to sketch your design on this 16 by 20 canvas using a watercolor pencil. The first thing is to create a nice level line across the canvas. This one is 4 inches up. You sketch lighter than I do. I'm trying to make my line dark enough for you to see. I did an early sketch in this in light paint, but I want you to be able to see what I'm sketching. I'm using a purple watercolor pencil because it will blend nicely into my background. I used a plate to create the arc of my sun, a big dinner plate, and just so you know, if circles are not your friend, it is perfectly acceptable to use a big dinner plate. Now here, over towards the left, I'm going to start sketching in my lotus, and the first part of my lotus is a teardrop leaf. It's quite big. This is the largest leaf that I have. If I were to look at the size of that leaf, that is 8 1/4 inches. That's a pretty big leaf, and I've dropped the flower about 1 inch below my waterline. I'm going to bring a little petal out here to the right, tuck a little friend. This is an 8-petal lotus blossom. I keep tucking little leaves. These will be a guide later. Now the watercolor pencil will bleed a little bit into my paint, but I know I want this to be purple, so that'll be okay. If you use graphite, it'll bleed gray into your paint, which you may not enjoy. Alright, that's sketched in and I'm ready to go. If drawing is not your friend, don't worry, you can find a link to the traceable down below. Okay, let's get started painting. I've got a number 10 bright to begin with. A bright is a nice square brush with a very nice firm edge. I have my paint laid out easily here. I put my cad red light, my cad yellow, my dog's name purple, my phthalo green, my phthalo blue, titanium white, and of course acrylic glazing liquid, because that really helps me in my hot and dry studio. The first color that I'm going to mix, I'm going to wet my brush and just take off the excess water so that it's a little bit moist but not actually wet. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to pull out a little of my yellow hue. Add a smidge, not a lot, of white to it. You can see that on the brush. And because of my dry conditions in my studio, a little of my glazing liquid, because that will slow down the drying time of my paint. I'm going to come around the outside edge of where my rising sun will be with my yellow. And I'm going to have a nice curved brush stroke around my sun on the flat. You can see that is just arcing like a bow over the top. Easy peasy. Pulling a little bit of paint out from the yellow and a little bit of white out. I'm not mixing these two together. I'm working for my edges, and that helps me save money on my paint. Good paint management can save you as much money as a sale. Making sure this curve is very nice and rounded. Now I'm going to have a lot of fun where I'm going to take just a smidge, you can see it's just a smidge on my brush right here, over to my yellow and mix a very bright green. Add another smidge of white to that, pulling my glazy medium or my hot dry conditions. Takes a lot of light to film an art lesson and have it look as bright as it needs to. And I'm still curving that stroke, and right here between these two edges I soften my brush stroke and feather it to help blend it, because this is still wet and this is wet, they'll blend together very well. Pulling out a little glazing medium and grabbing a little more of that green paint to finish that arc and making sure I have a nice blend. That's the trick to blending acrylic paint, is that it blends very well where wet paint is going into wet paint. And it struggles a little bit if the paint is dry and then becomes dry brushing. So this is an area where my glazing liquid helps me a lot, because it slows down the drying time of my paint and gives me that extra time I need in my studio. You might be painting a little slower than I am, so it could help you slow down the drying time of your paint too. Now that's a nice blend right there. I'm going to pull a little more yellow out. I have the green still on my brush, and I'll come blend this side. I just want to do this before this side dries, because I want a nice soft edge blend between these two colors. Doing that soft dusting. This is a little bit like if you were to wear makeup, if you were blending makeup, or if you were dusting something that was quite delicate in your shop. Either one of those thoughts when you think about the very light, delicate pressure needed for that. And I'm brushing the paint here, getting all that paint off my brush and putting it on my canvas, curving that stroke in an arc. I'm going to pull a little more green out, add even a little blue to it, come over to my yellow. This is much darker now. And take this nice green from my waterline, and if you need to, you can kind of see where the load is on my brush. I'm pulling a little bit out on the tip there so that it has a good brush off of the brush. And I'm painting the edge of my bristles, which gives me a nice straight line, and then curving that stroke up. You can do this. You just do what I do and you'll get it. But you can still make this painting your own. Even if you're painting along with me, you can still make creative decisions and feel good about that if you want to change colors or have an idea. I'm going to pull a little more green out and add some yellow to that. This is a little bit darker than the greens I've used. You can see how it's lighter yellow at the top and darker green towards the waterline. Pretty simple and also a lot of fun. Blending that edge. Blending that edge. Making sure I don't have pitting in my canvas, which is the little white spots that happens to us sometimes. Now if you need to, it's a good time to wipe off your brush or rinse off your brush as you're painting. I've grabbed a little green over to my yellow because I have to do the same thing I did over here on this side. Grab a little of my blending medium so it'll do that for me nicely. Hopefully it hasn't dried. So one of the nice things about acrylic paint is that it dries very quickly, but that can be frustrating for new students. And remember, water is also the good flow agent for acrylic paint. It was made to work with water. But you don't want to get your brush too wet or too dry or the paint won't come off nicely. It's always a goal about keeping the brush and the paint flowing onto the canvas in a nice manner. I might bring a little of this green up to increase this nice halo effect that I've got going. And a little blue. And right here, I'll add that green. Painting using the edge of my brush to paint very carefully around the lines I've made. You can totally do this. Now, as to not waste any paint, I actually don't need to rinse my brush. I might brush it out a little bit. I'm going to pull some green and some blue together, and it's going to make a color that will remind you of the ocean a little bit. I'm going to add some white to that. And I'm going to, with my brush flat and moving horizontally, paint in the water. And you can see how just changing the direction of my brush stroke helps create that effect of water. And I'm working with my brush with what it's good at, using it to create a nice crisp edge and around my lotus, but always making sure that my brush strokes stay level, because this water will need to stay level. Put a little more blue into this mix and adding my glazing. So I've got to keep the paint flowing. Now I might need to come on the edge of my brush to paint neatly around my lotus flower. But once I have, I will try to make sure that I straighten out the flow of that brush stroke so that the feeling of water remains. Getting all my paint onto the canvas. And what's nice, because I have it rinsed, different pigments will deposit and give me some nice effects. You can add some more white to this beautiful mixture. And you're going to see that it's real easy to get a beautiful water effect using these colors. Sometimes my hair dryer gets in the way. I have a hair dryer around in case I need to dry my painting, because while sometimes we want it to be wet paint blending into wet paint, sometimes we need to dry that paint to do a technique. And so it's good to have one of those around. Just blending this. Just blending back and forth. Getting the paint off my brush onto the canvas. I'm going to get a little more blue. If you think painting is fun, be sure and share this with your friends and family. Share this love of painting. Tell them about how much fun they could have if they can do it. I've just taken a little more of just the blue. See me pulling it out here onto the edge of my brush. You can see the paint's really only gotten to about here, but it's not all the way up to the metal. And I'm just putting a little shadow under my lotus, a little bit, blending it down into a soft triangle. So it kind of comes down to an implied point. And then under my horizon line. Doesn't take a lot. Now I'm going to get another number 10. And the reason that I'm changing brushes is that the blue and green with the orange and yellow that I'm putting in the sun will gray out and dull the colors. So you always want to be sure that you don't mix contrasting colors, that's colors that live on the opposite end of the color wheel, together, because it can dull your painting. So either rinse the brush out really well or get a new brush. And it can be important to change water often as well. So I'm doing the same thing where I dip the brush and very carefully get the extra water off and make sure I'm not carrying any pigment that I wouldn't want in there. And I'm going to pull out a little bit of this red and this yellow, trying to avoid that green that I've got going there, because that green will dull my colors. And I'm very carefully paying attention to the lines that I traced in, painting around my lotus. Lotuses are a special flower because they're very hardy and they're known to bloom even in very murky, muddy water. So they're a very, very beloved flower. And they have a lot of meaning for people, and they're also very popular in water gardens. Pulling that out, making sure that I don't. You can see that load right there. Doesn't go very far up into the brush. I'm just making sure that these colors are avoiding that green so they stay very vibrant. Very vibrant is what you're looking for. And I'm making sure that I paint my sun in such a way that its edge is very clean and nice. Using the sharpness of my brush. And this is why a sharp brush can be important, because if the brush isn't sharp, it won't give you a good edge. Obviously, it's not sharp like what we mean when we talk about the sharpness of a knife. More like the sharpness of maybe a hairstyle. Good trim. All right, now I haven't rinsed my brush. I'm risking a little bit because there's some green right there, but I think I can edge it out and get just that yellow. Then we get a little of my glazing. It's just all on a bead on the brush. And I'm going to come on the inside edge and paint with just this yellow. And I'm curving these lines. And where the orange and the yellow are meeting, they're blending very beautifully, giving that warm, glowing feel that you would want in a rising sun. Now I'm going to wipe my brush a little bit and put out a small amount of more yellow paint. And this is because I'm really concerned about the impact that color will have on my sun. And that's why good paint management really, really helps. I'm going to get a little white on here. And a little, so you can see all that just beads, beads, beads. And just paint the center here. I have to be even careful of the purple that I trace the sun in with because that can get in there. But luckily, it is definitely staying where it belongs and behaving as I want it to. Don't stress out if things don't go perfectly in your painting. It's just art. And it's more important that you finish a painting than are perfect at painting. Don't put that pressure on yourself. Painting is a way to relax and feel better. It's not a test of how perfect you can be. We're doing fun art here, not fine art. All right, keep pulling this down in around your flower. Try to be neat using the edge. If a brush is ever troublesome for you to use, like it feels too big or you're having trouble following lines, switch to a smaller brush. And you may find that you get control again of what's happening. All right, just making sure it's a nice blend. Soft feathering edges we did earlier. That beautiful blend. This is something people think only oils can do, but actually acrylics are quite good at these techniques and events. I'm going to rinse this brush out. I'm going to get a slightly smaller, but equally liked number 8 bright. You can tell I like brights. And even though there's a little blue on this, I'm going to pull it out. It's just white, and I'm going to come along here and start to paint in my lotus. And you say to yourself, if you're painting it in white, why not just leave it on the canvas? And I'll tell you that I think it looks more finished if you paint it. Also, I like when the little bits of paint or watercolor pigment pick up into the white. It creates a painterly sort of effect that I think looks really nice. I'm using the edge of my brush, and it allows me to go crisply there. You can get a smidge, a small amount of purple out, just a little bit, and on your white. And then just come along here on the edge and really think about this petal. I'm using the sharpness of my brush to follow along my line. You can even come all the way up the line very, very lightly to get a thin line. And then just go ahead and blend and feather in this purple shading. I'm going to get a little glazing medium, but I'm going to avoid that yellow. Purple and blue blend well together. They're a harmony. So they make harmonious colors. That's a nice petal right there. Go ahead and get a little more purple. Just the smallest amount on your brush. It's just dusted with pigment. You can see it's not a lot. And I'm going to paint this edge of the leaf. Following down. Maybe even pull some of this up here from the bottom. It's real fun for me to do. Curving those lines to imply the shape of that petal. And let's pull out some white and blend. Just pulling out these colors, just blending them on the canvas softly. This is a soft dusting, blending pressure on your brush. Put a soft pressure on yourself too. Just enjoy. Let's do the next one here. A little purple. Come underneath. Trace our lines. And paint that in the same way as we did the other two. Little small amount of purple on the brush. White, medium. Outline your petal. Now get just white paint and fill that all in with the just white in the center. You'll notice this gives you very different colored petals for each petal. And just do this for the rest of the flower. Give your brush a little wash, just a little bit one, to get the white off, and pull out a little of your blue and a smidge of your purple. Mix those together. Right under the flower, very carefully, create a little shadow. Don't go too far past yet. And then as horizontal as you can, blend out a nice shadow. The glazing medium I'm using allows me to let the paint be just a little more transparent. I just wiped off a little extra pigment here. But you could just do yours lighter. Go ahead and take little reflections out long. Come back. Long. And rinse your brush out. And now is a good time to get a number 4. I'd like to define the halo. I might put some glazing medium out because my glazing medium here is getting a little smidgy dirty. Even pick a little of this green up. And go ahead and real fast make some dashes. These are light, suggestive lines. Just dusting the brush around the sun. When you're in the green, you can make these dashes a titch green. Not the whole area, just around the top here. To create a little energy. Give it a finished look. Rinse that brush out really, really well. Now right here, I'd like to add some sun reflection with a word on paint. If you're painting with a pro paint, you probably have enough pigment in that paint to go right over the blue. But if you're painting with a student paint or economy paint, you may not. So if you're using one of those paints, be sure and paint your reflections white first. Let it dry completely and then paint your yellow and red over. Otherwise, your yellow and red may have trouble going over the blue. I'm using pro paint, so I don't really have to worry about that much. Doesn't really matter what you use, it's just understanding how it is and what makes it happy and work well. I am coming right along the sun with this red. I'm going to just zigzag back a reflection. I like to keep these lines uneven, make them irregular and very level. That's the number one thing to help you feel like something is light skipping on the surface of water and reflections, is to just keep these lines level. Oh, some short ones there. So that's very nice. And just look at it and see if there's a place that needs a little more of that color. Right there. It's not a problem. Rinse out. And grab some just yellow. I'm going to come back with my yellow and dance a little of this color down through my red. This is just to say this is reflecting along my water too. Not nice? Rinse it out. And my final touch, which makes me pretty happy, is I'm going to take a little white and a little purple, maybe some of my glazing medium, and also put a little of this purple reflection underneath this beautiful lotus. Under that out. You can see how I go back and forth and just press in. It's fine. You don't have to worry about that. I think the lotus is dry enough now to add the last touch to it. I rinsed my brush out. I'm going to get a little white and add a smidge of blue to it. And at the base of my lotus, especially this main petal, I'm going to dust a little blue. Just a soft brush, almost a dry brush. You can see the paint underneath is showing through. It's not a heavy paint. I'm going to come to the friend here at the side and add that, and a little bit here and here. I might come and get just a little more blue, a little of my glazing, and just enforce that a little bit. I like it when flowers have a few colors in them. I think that really helps them. If you're having a great time doing this painting, be sure and share this with your friends and family so they can join in the art fun too. Now let's get to the next part. I really like this small detail brush. Let me hold this up where you can see it closely. Now this is in number 6 and it's a detail round, and you can see from my thumbnail about how big that is. That is going to be my perfect little friend for doing my vines. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to get this brush wet, fairly wet actually, and I'm going to really thin some paint. And I'm going to load it just on the tip. You can see that right there. And I'm going to make some design lines. I'm going to come over on my left and just make some horizontal lines. These are each going to be different lengths. I'm very light because mostly this line is going to get painted out. This is to help me later. See how I keep thinning and then I roll the brush and then put it on the tip. That helps me. I'm going to try to make each of these vines slightly different lengths. So this one will be longer. Then maybe a couple short ones. Right? I like this decorative part of the element because it ties what's happening in the water up here to the top of the painting. Each line I'm going to try to think about its relationship to the vines next to it in the design. I'd like to take some of these vines down over the front of this view to give us a sense that we are getting a secret, secluded look into a world. I think that when you look at this in your home, that will give you a lot of joy. And maybe a little bit shorter there. Just adding the vines. You can even give a bigger space if you want to. Take that one down maybe quite long. Just imagine gravity's pulling them down. These are very light sketches. You could do this with chalk if you liked. I'm very comfortable with paint, but you could do it with chalk. I think I'll take this one pretty much right above the water. You'll notice that my lines are not perfect ruler straight lines. They wiggle a little bit, but what I know is the painting technique I'm going to do on top of them will completely cover that up and make that not a problem. Just a little bit right there. All right, I feel like I have a nice arrangement of vines that make me feel good. I'm going to get my brush wet again and really thin my blue paint. See how I'm bringing the water to it and then just swirling it around here? Then if I need to, I roll my brush and I have it loaded like this, and I'm going to do the coolest thing. I'm going to come in and press, 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 press. And I'm starting to run out of paint. I can always rotate the brush over to the other side in my hand. I'm going to come over to this white right here. And I'm also going to thin out some nice white paint. Roll and then load. So this will be slightly lighter than what's above it. Press, 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 press. See how easy that is? Just pressing down. When I run out of paint, I'll load up some more. There we go. Now I'd like it to be a lot lighter. So I'm going to load up a little more white on this one. And press, press, There you go. First vine. Now you might want to put out some more white as you go for each of your colors so that you can lighten, get what I like to call the ombre. The next one next to it, I think I might mix up my purple and blue colors that I have, which will be very, very interesting. So I load up the purple like I did before, thinning it out with the water. So you can thin out with water. I could also thin with my glazing gel. So either one of those things would thin. Press, 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 press. I'm going to get a little white, add it to my brush here. Pressing. You can see I'm doing this zipper. This is very easy. Adding more white as I go. Pulling in more white so that it's getting lighter and lighter. Now each time I do one of these, I'll change up my colors a little bit so that they feel a little different from each other. Working that down, rotating the brush when I run out of paint, and then going and getting more if I need it. Got a little purple, blue, and white there. Mixing those colors up helps with the decorative sensibility of what I'm doing. White, just pressing it in. Rinse the brush. There's pigment on my brush. That can help me. Create a lot of visual interest. Who doesn't want visual interest? Just dabbing it down, it gets more delicate as it goes. Some purple. Maybe this one will be purple. As you go, just change each one. Just remembering to roll the brush till the paint runs out. Load up more paint. Load up more paint. There we go. Now, you could decide that this one next to it is purple, or you could decide that it's blue. I think I'll change it up and make it purple again. And some of what you're doing will be to paint these vines and change up the pattern that you're seeing. For visual interest. Loading the white. And you can see how the little line I sketched in is nowhere near as important now as I'm painting it out. And why it wasn't that important that the line be perfect. But just a guide. Like me. Like I'm your guide. It's just a guide to help you on your art journey. This isn't my art journey, it's yours. So you might be like, I want red and yellow vines, or green and yellow vines. I am rethinning some paint and coming right here. Just painting. This is what we do for all the rest through here. Let's go ahead and finish those up. Mixing a little of those too. There's the last one. All right. Rinse that out. Give that a little look. Decide if you're happy with it. I think I have one last thing I'd like to add before I put my signature, which is a little light reflection. I'm going to go back and find my number 4 bright and make sure it's fairly rinsed out. Just under my white lotus, I feel like there needs to be a little white reflection. Just a small amount right here. And now that all the paint is dry, it's pretty easy to add. You can even put some here. Just a little bit of this pure light reflecting down and tying this all together. Also tying what's happening in the flower to the vines. Now that brush that you just did your beautiful vines with is a good one to do your signature with. Hopefully you'll like what you painted enough to sign it. Well, guys, that was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed this quick, creative little tidbit to share with you. I hope you really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to seeing these on social media. Remember, you can find me at all of the links below. And don't forget, if you know somebody that would like to paint this painting, be sure and share it with them. I really want to see everything that you created, and I want to see you at this easel again really soon. I really love you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.